I'm Chris, and this is Beau, and we are on a heinous trek. And welcome to our third experiment. Today, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, Blade Runner. Blade Runner opened up this week 38 years ago. During that time, I was listening to a lot of punk rock, and during that time, the band The Clash put out this one record which was a huge seller for them, called Combat Rock. And one of the songs off it, Straight to Hell, reminds me a lot of this film because it kind of coincided with the release of this movie. The release of the movie was the original theatrical cut. There are 3 different versions of this film. There's a theatrical cut, then later in the 90s there became a re-edited called the director's cut, and then more recently, which was the director's cut, which is the final the final cut of the picture, which is, I guess, the more canon one. There are lots of people, and there's lots of different unedited work prints versions of the film. But when the film came out, this particular song, Straight to Hell, off of Combat Rock, reminds me a lot of the film. I was living in Marblehead, and of course the film stars Harrison Ford. So my dad thought, hey, let's go to the movies together. And hey, Harrison Ford's in this. And Harrison Ford had just done Raiders of the Lost Ark. And for my father, anything with Harrison Ford would have just meant, oh, Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, oh. So we went to go see it. Now, it's certainly my favorite film, but I wouldn't recommend it to most film goers or film aficionados. It was a box office bomb, but it certainly set a new bar in terms of lots of other things: cinematography, special effects, and looks and style, especially later on in a lot of rock videos, because MTV had just only recently debuted around that time, when they used to play rock videos. It's directed by my favorite director, Ridley Scott, I had seen him do previously his big directorial debut, which was Alien, which created the series. And he had done a period piece that caught the eye of most, called The Duelists, with Harvey Keitel. And the Blade Runner is based on a very famous writer named Philip K. Dick. Philip K. Dick is a very futuristic writer, but with a slight twist of paranoia because of Blade Runner's popularity. Many more Philip K. Dick writings, like this one, which was called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? And it's very much more of an expose in future class systems. But the popularity or the lingering cult and VHS life of this film certainly lent more motion picture studios to look into more of his writings, which would lead to certainly, most people know, Total Recall, Minority Report, a little more unknown film with Peter Weller named Screamers, lots of others. But when I saw it with my father, we went to Marblehead, where I was living, at the Warwick Cinema. Warwick Cinema, hopefully when things start opening up again, please go visit them. I haven't even gone since they've reopened. They had closed for a long time, but they did a massive revamp of the place, and it's gorgeous. But when I saw it, my father tended to fall asleep if he was bored. And the problem was my father snored like a bear. So during the motion picture, I was just kind of hiding down low into my seat during the rest of the motion picture. The soundtrack is one of my favorite composers, a guy named Vangelis, who had already been best known for his theme for the movie Chariots of Fire. His soundtrack didn't get released originally during the motion picture release, so another orchestra recreated the soundtrack, and the soundtrack wasn't released for many years, and not in its entirety. It's always had many different bootleg versions. They started popping up in the early 90s when the director's cut version of the motion picture. In the original version, the theatrical version that I saw, there is a narration by Harrison Ford. Now that's to mimic a lot of the film noir genre back then. Also, Harrison Ford was supposed to wear a fedora, but because he had worn one already in Raiders of the Lost Ark, they decided to give Rick Deckard, his character, a very short haircut. So I would always watch this film over and over. A friend of mine made a little bootleg of it and gave me a cute list of how to watch the film. And I would watch this film over and over and over. I would, even at my friends' parties, if they had a VCR, I would always sometimes maybe bring my videotape, and when everybody was passed out, I would slip it in and watch it back to back to back all through the party and just ignore everybody else. Many years later, when I moved to Los Angeles, I ended up on a motion picture, which was a sequel to a first film starring Rowdy Piper, but Rowdy Piper did not resume the role, so it was given to another actor. So during one of the scenes shooting with this actor, we were off to the side and waiting for the scene to resume filming, and while they set up the lighting and it was I believe it was a tracking shot, and so he was very expressive in how he talked, and much like myself, and he was talking about an explosion. Flipped out his arms, ended up whacking me in the face very hard. So because of this, he and I became very good friends. So we would later on shoot at what was called the Paramount Ranch, which just recently, within the last 2 years, had been burned down. And this is a place where most anything that had a Western feel, much like a TV series like Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, or many TV series and rock videos or whatever, would always shoot there. So we were shooting there with Lou Ferrigno, and so the actor and I had a discussion, Robert and I, and got around to discussing our favorite movies. And he goes, oh. I said, what? He goes, well, what's your favorite movie? And I said, that's easy, Blade Runner. He goes, what a coincidence. You see that guy right down there? That's Brian James. He's in Blade Runner. Why don't you go over and you tell him that I told him to talk to you? And it was one of the wildest times, dressed up green as a frog, talking to one of my favorite actors that I'd always been watching over and over and over. It was quite the surreal, much like, so last year, Blade Runner actually took place in 2019, and we still don't have flying cars.